Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Chrysalis. Today we'll look at a few posts from various Reddit transgender forums. Our first one comes from the subreddit asktransgender and states, "Should I act the same on a date with a trans guy as I would with a cis guy?" I don't know if this is a stupid question, but I've never dated a trans guy before and intend to date him and act around him in the same way I would if I was on a date with a cisgender gay guy and was wondering if this is the right way to be. Like, as far as I'm concerned, he's just another dude. I don't know if it'd be dumb or assumptive to not acknowledge his transness and act around him as I normally would, or if this would be like the best thing to do. This question seems to come up a lot for folks interested in dating a trans or non-binary person. Best thing you can do on a first date, or really any date, is to just be yourself. Treat the situation as you would any cisgender date. The last thing any trans or non-binary person wants to experience on a first date is a barrage of questions related to their gender identity. It's natural to have certain questions, especially if you're new to dating trans folks. We understand this, and are happy to answer any and all questions you might have in time. We just don't want them all at once, and especially on a first date. It can come off a little too intrusive and overwhelming. It might even scare us off. Of course, the normal topics of a conversation are in play, like asking somebody where they're from, if they have any siblings, what they do for work, etc. But starting a conversation around the specifics of someone's genitalia or their you-know-what proclivities can be off-putting. Pace yourself and remember to always be empathetic and genuine. First dates are scary, even under the best circumstances. Don't turn it into an interrogation. If you treat us just like you would any cisgender individual, it'll help us open up and trust you with more personal information down the road. Like this responder mentions, "Yep, he's just a dude. There's no reason to draw attention to his transness unless he brings it up himself. That's how it was for my ex, who was trans-masculine. That's how it is for me as a trans femme. I'm just a woman, nothing special, and he's just a man, and that's all. You got this. Good luck, and have fun." Exactly. Don't overthink it. Keep the conversation light and fun, and don't sweat the gender particulars unless they bring it up first. Or like this poster says, "Trans men are literally just men, my dude. The only thing that would be a little different is, you know what? But when the time comes for that, if he's ready, that's a conversation to be had between the two of you when it gets to that point. Do your best not to acknowledge it, but if he brings it up and seems comfortable, match the energy, and best of luck." I couldn't agree more. Best of luck to you, OP, and I really hope that you two hit it off. Our next post comes from the subreddit r/trans and is titled, "8 years on hormone replacement therapy. The last 2 have sucked. I'm stuck. I came out at age 43. I was dressing the part before I went on hormones, so the doctor didn't even bat an eye when I asked for HRT. She asked a couple simple questions. I walked out of their office the same day with a script, and I was ecstatic. For the next 6 years, I lived authentically, loving it. I have no clue what happened. If it was the weight I gained, or my brain repairing itself from a stupid drug addiction I had prior to transitioning, or if society is playing a role, which I know for sure that society is keeping me down. You see, I moved to Colorado 3 years ago, and when I got back to Michigan, I moved into my folks' place, who misgendered me nonstop. The small township we live in is extremely right-wing. So if I go to the local gas station, which I don't anymore, but I would get made fun of and laughed at every single time. After that happened a couple times, I quit going there, but the whole township here just sucks. There are still Trump election signs in place. My stepdad has dementia and says he nonstop and just pisses me off to no end. Which, with him doing it, my mom is slipping a lot again. The one thing that made me feel good about myself was being able to shave my body and feel smooth. I can't shave anymore because of a skin condition I just got diagnosed with. I'm almost 52 and my skin is starting to hate me shaving it also. I can't get laser electrolysis because of money. When I started transitioning, I had a good support system and I had laser done for 2 years, which did absolutely nothing. I feel like I got scammed. So I have to shave my face every single day, but as I said, my skin is hating it and I feel like I may have to stop shaving my face too. I'm about to give up. I'm still on hormones, but every week I sit in the bathroom with the needle in my hand crying, not knowing what to do. I think the only reason I keep the hormones up is for health reasons, just to maintain some sort of normalcy. I told my doctor some of my concerns. He recommended therapy, but I've been in therapy my entire life from age 12 on. I've been in intensive therapy for 3 years, twice a week. It doesn't seem to ever help. It just kind of keeps me from, yeah, I'll refrain from saying that. I just don't know what to do anymore. I've been in non-binary mode for the last 8 months. I've been living in sweatpants and boys' t-shirts. I hate that summer is coming. All I have are dresses and camisoles with short shorts. And I'm just not comfortable with that currently. And I hate wearing boy clothes. If I passed like at all, I wouldn't care so much, but I don't. Not even close. Bloody hell. Sorry and thanks for reading. If you did, I have no idea if any kind words are going to help. My partner tries to make me feel better, but I know what I look like and how I feel about it. I almost got a tad upset because I feel like she's just hug-boxing me, and I feel like when I transitioned in the first place that everyone I ran into hug-boxed me. May not be true, but that's how I feel. I hate my brain. Wow, thank you for sharing this, OP. I'm sorry things feel so hopeless for you right now. I actually had to look up the term hugboxing, so I'm glad you mentioned it so I could learn something new, and I'll try not to fall into a similar trap. It seems like there are a few things going on at the moment. Speaking from experience, I can empathize. I lost my first home during the Great Recession, which forced me to move back to my conservative hometown to regroup financially. My dad was miserable and unsupportive of my trans identity, and I also met some negative social judgment. At the same time, I was being discriminated against at my place of work. Things felt pretty awful for a while. Just as I can tell, they feel the same way for you right now. As far as your dad's concerned, the dementia might be factoring into his misgendering of you. Of course, I'm not close to the situation, so please take my advice with a grain of salt. But there's a huge difference between misgendering someone intentionally and misgendering them accidentally, or as a result of a medical issue. My mom still misgenders me on occasion in public and when she gets caught up in her own social anxiety. I correct her so she's aware of it, but she doesn't do it maliciously, so I don't really hold it against her. If your parents continue misgendering you, continue to remind them of your preferred pronouns in a firm but respectful way. Repetition has a funny way of wearing down even the most obstinate among us. In terms of your current living situation, don't do anything that would place you in physical harm. After years of incremental social acceptance, the Trump administration has made prejudice and bigotry of trans people a top priority. It emboldens some to give in to their worst impulses and act out against us, even though our discrimination is just a lot of misdirection for Trump's lack of meaningful legislation and disastrous economic policies. Yet, that's probably small comfort given where you live. Sometimes in life we have to do what we need to do before we can do what we want to do. If living authentically at this place and time presents a risk to you, work on the things you can affect now so you can be the person you want to be moving forward. Remember, no one can take away your gender identity from you. That's the folly of all the right-wing MAGA vitriol. They can take everything else from us, from documentation to healthcare access, but they'll never change our identities or feelings of self-worth. If possible, find a support group either locally, although it doesn't sound like there are too many options where you live, or online. Also, seek out nonprofits that can help defray the cost of electrolysis. When I first transitioned, I also opted for laser hair removal, which did nothing but break my skin out in hives. I eventually switched to electrolysis. It was a far more effective treatment for me personally. Ultimately, try to save enough to get out of that situation and into one that reaffirms your authentic self. It may take some time, but you'll be much happier down the road when it does. Like this commenter says, "Girl, you've lost your support system. The problem isn't you or that you transitioned, it's your environment. The face part is a little rougher. If laser isn't working for you, then electrolysis is the other direction, or waxing, but just as impermanent. And there are charities you can apply to get help with the money. I hope you're able to find peace soon, friend." I absolutely agree with the commenter here. I also want to acknowledge your comment about therapy keeping you from unaliving yourself. I know things look grim at the moment, but I hope you never consider following through with this. There are people like your partner, members of this community, and others who love and support you. At 52, you still have a lot of life left to live and things to offer the world. Don't become another statistic right-wing agitators can use against our community. Please, don't let bigotry and intolerance extinguish your light in the world. Which brings us to our third post of the day from the subreddit asktransgender. Is a guy watching Joe Rogan a red flag? I don't know much about Joe, but the type of people he platforms, i.e. Elon Musk, I don't like. So is it a red flag if someone loves that type of content? This is an interesting question. For anyone who's unfamiliar, Joe Rogan is a former television show host, comedian, actor, and podcaster known for inviting many right-wing guests on his show. Rogan has courted controversy in almost every facet of his professional career and continues to do so by seemingly normalizing a lot of radically unpopular opinions like Holocaust denial, COVID-19 misinformation, and a willingness to platform guests peddling pseudoscience and anti-transgender sentiment. Rogan has also voiced his support for same-sex marriage in the past, was a supporter of Bernie Sanders back in 2020, and universal health care. So like many of us, he seems to be his own person when it comes to a lot of social and political issues. Personally, I believe the flames of the culture war are fanned by folks who adopt an us versus them mentality with little to no room for compromise. Having said that, I'm also a firm believer of the phrase, where there's smoke, there's fire. Rogan supported Donald Trump in the 2024 election, and as the OP noted, has hosted a wide variety of controversial right-wing figures on his podcast. He's also close to Dana White, UFC owner and vocal Trump supporter. I suppose a red flag depends on what relationship OP has to the guy in question. In his appreciation of Rogan's content, it doesn't seem to negatively impact your relationship. It may not be a huge impediment, but definitely stay alert and watch for warning signs. I don't know too many liberals who regularly watch Rogan, except out of morbid fascination, and none that espouse his more extreme beliefs. If you think it's safe enough to do so, maybe ask him what he finds so interesting about Rogan. Perhaps your guy friend is a train wreck enthusiast and likes seeing how the other half conducts themselves. But just like there doesn't seem to be a strong correlation between open-minded people watching Fox News, I'm willing to bet a majority of Rogan's audience probably aren't very sympathetic to the plight of trans and gender nonconforming people. Like this response says, I'd say so. Joe Rogan is basically a gateway drug to the alt-right. People start watching him, then watch the people he platforms, and just spiral further and further down the fascist rabbit hole. Doesn't necessarily mean that someone who watches him is already harboring far-right beliefs, but they are certainly at risk of falling into those, hence red flag. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for watching, and to all the trans and non-binary people, as well as our straight and LGBTQ plus allies, keep living authentically and speaking truth to power. Thanks for watching The Chrysalis, and I'll talk again soon.